Chapter 11. Tan's tall figure came and pressed against me while I was preparing buttery scrambled eggs to eat with slices of bread. "I can smell it from my bedroom, Doctor." He bent down to take a sniff of my neck instead of on the egg, sending goosebumps over my arms. "Get your head out before I brand your forehead with this pan." I used my elbow to push him away. "Get your plates out." "Yes, sir." Tan relented, backing away from me at last. I sighed rarely. Tan maneuvered into my bubble of personal space more and more since the night before. I snapped at him until I ran out of foul words, but he seemed unfazed by my rebuke. Right at this moment, what were we to each other? Are we still just friends? Friends with benefits? Boyfriends? With the lack of opportunities, these things were something I had yet to have a serious talk with him about. Tan himself had never said that he liked or was in love with me. He only said that he found me particularly interesting, and that was all. "Any progress in finding Tar?" Tan inquired, while handing me the plates. I told him about my discovery last night, and he just nodded in acknowledgement. "We have one less suspect. So my hypothesis about revenge is off the table. I guess the remaining suspect is one of the big shots. We need to find out who Mr. Black is." I poured scrambled eggs onto the plate. "And how is your report going?" "It's done. I'll send it to the police today." I carried the pan and left it in the sink. "Oh, I see. I've never seen an autopsy report before. With your permission, may I have a look at it for once?" I was going to put the bread into the toaster, but paused midway. He wanted to see the report? I turned to look at Tan, who rested his hands on the counter, smiling at me. Why would he want to see it? Was it just an act out of pure curiosity? Or does he want confirmation whether the report has complied with the killer's wish? I continued what I was doing, putting 2 slices of bread in the slot and pressing the handle downwards. I waited in silence. At this point, I still didn't trust him wholeheartedly. I did trust him a lot though, more than 19% in numbers, if I really cared to count. I still had this tiny space of doubt, however, which ever so slowly dwindled as time went on. Nevertheless, it was irrefutably there. The sphere of distrust remained there all the time. There was something in Tan that remained unresolved, something that I may have overlooked because of the affinity between us. I felt a touch on my waist. "Bun, what's wrong?" I didn't turn to look at Tan. "Would it be okay if I won't let you see it?" "It's all right if you don't want to show it to me. Don't look so depressed." Tan grabbed my shoulders and turned me around to face him. He lifted his hand to brush the wavy hair across my forehead into place. "I just want to know what you're doing every day. I'm just trying to get to know you, that's all." "You will never know me." I eyed his handsome features before moving my gaze to focus on the bruises on Tan's forehead. The bruises which were now turned yellowish and almost gradually faded away. "Because I don't even know you." Tan went still for a few seconds before starting to say, "My name is Tan, given name Verapong, age 26. I'm a tutor in a cram school, born and raised here, but I went to university elsewhere for 4 years. Tan began to herd me to the kitchen counter. "I'm an only child, growing up with my mom, but she was unhealthy. I worked hard to get into reputable university so that she'd be proud. My goal was to become a professor at the university, to teach and do research to earn my place in an academic position. But Mom's condition became increasingly worse, so I decided to come home. Opened a small cram school, made my living to support Mom's hospital expenses." I was dumbfounded. I never thought he would share this information about himself like this. I tried to worm my way out of the small space between his tall figure and the counter, but Tan took my shoulder, trapping me. I got where I am pretty quickly. Maybe it's because I like teaching and my lucky ass. I had enough money for Mom to stay in a private hospital without asking for help from my dad's family to pay the expenses. His dad's family? My eyes widened when the realization hit me. Now I knew why he hadn't mentioned about his father. Tan's mother was his father's mistress, I realized. Anything else you'd like to know about me? A small smile came across his lips. You can ask me anything. I have nothing to hide. I don't want the man I love to doubt me. Tan bent down, resting his forehead on my shoulder. His hands moved downward, holding my hands in his. The man you loved, so you say. I closed my eyes. I felt my heart rate escalate like crazy. My train of thought was a jumble. I was being pulled into a hole by this man, falling. The hole in which no one else had taken me to before. The hole from which I couldn't climb out. Why does it have to be Tan who made me feel this way? Why does it have to be the former #1 suspect on my list? I didn't know if he really liked me or purposefully made me fall in love with him for other purposes. Alas, there was no going back from my feelings now. Tan. I stared at the ground, hating myself immensely being like this. If you betray me, I pray a dire fate befalls you, and my wrath will follow you for the rest of your life. Surprisingly, he didn't utter any words. He lifted his arm and held me tightly in response to my curse. Today I made a decision not to allow Tan to drive me to work as I wanted to take care of this on my own. After handing the autopsy report to Captain Aim, I drove back to the hospital to examine the patients at the forensic examination room. Once I'd submitted the report, my heart felt as though it had been ripped out of my chest. My stomach felt hollowed. In the end, I did what the killer wanted me to do. On the way back, I tried to imagine what would happen after this. Our secret investigation would go on, but I had no clue whether the killer would let me go just as he had promised, or would he return to do something to me? My guess was he might come back to murder me, to shut me up at worst. Or he might find some other means to threaten me to keep this a secret at best. The fear began to creep into my heart. Every ounce of uneasiness coursed through my chest. After work, I drove back to Tan's house. He left me a key so that I could come and go as I pleased. I didn't see his car, which means he'd probably went out to his class. I used the key to get into the house, heading upstairs. I was about to go into my room, but then an idea came into my head. Maybe I should check out Tan's room. I didn't want to suspect him as a murderer. It's more like I actually wanted to rule him out as the potential suspect. I wanted to be comfortable around him, so that I could love him the way I wanted to. I decided to open the door to Tan's bedroom. I'd visited this neat room once before, when Tan led me up here to carry on where we'd left off on the sofa that night. My eyes carefully scanned each object in the room. I used to wonder where he had kept all of his things. His room was unusually tidy and scarcely furnished, unlike regular people. I opened the wardrobe and the drawers of the desk in the room. Nothing seemed suspicious to me. I sat down on a chair at his desk. I took Tan's grey sweater, which slung over the back of his chair, to see. It still had a faint scent of its owner on it. I saw a small orange post-it note inside the pocket of the sweater. I pulled it out, didn't expect it to be anything significant. On the note was a cell phone number in neat handwriting. The name of the owner of this number was written below, Nath. A heart was drawn next to the name. Why does this note look so familiar? I flipped to see the other side and found another phone number. One look and I recognized whose number it belonged to. I was sure as hell I could remember it, because it's my own number, the one belonging to my stolen phone. And the note was written in my handwriting. Around midnight on the day Jane Jera was murdered, someone had called me from a landline asking for someone whose name was Nath. I told the caller that he had probably dialed the wrong number. Then I ended the call. I couldn't remember the caller's voice. However, I seemed to remember the content of the conversation. The end of the line was a man's voice. Is this Nath's number? Who the heck is Nath? I immediately deduced that this was a misdialed call. No, you've dialed the wrong number. Eh? The end of the line was quiet for a few seconds. I think I punched the correct one. May I know who this is? Tan called me that night. I sprang to my feet, my heart sinking to the ground while I tried to rack my brain as to where did this note come from and why my handwriting was on it, along with the number of a woman named Nath. Wait, I remember now. I gave this piece of note with my number on it to Pert on the day I first ran into him at the court. I remembered because he handed this note to me despite having some random girl's number on it. I teased Pert before turning the note over and writing my number on it. What the hell is going on here? How does Tan have this post-it note with him?